Petrova? The name escaped Julian Croft's lips like a wisp of frozen air, a ghost from the world of boardrooms now haunting a desolate park bench. He'd almost strode past, his mind still chewing on a multi-billion-dollar merger. In New York, you trained yourself not to see the city's casualties, but it wasn't the woman's slumped form that stopped his polished shoes on the icy pavement. It was the smaller, impossibly still shape huddled against her for warmth. Drawn by a force he didn't understand, he moved closer. The merciless glow of a street lamp illuminated a familiar cascade of dark hair. Elena Petrova, the brilliant marketing director he'd fired, and curled beside her, a child's face, serene in sleep, was his true indictment. This wasn't misfortune. This was a result. His result. If this powerful opening has already moved you, show your support with a like and subscribe to the channel to follow their unforgettable journey. The wind sliced through the canyons of Midtown Manhattan like a knife forged in ice, carrying the faint tang of exhaust and distant rain. Julian Croft pulled his cashmere overcoat tighter around his shoulders, the fabric whispering against his tailored suit as he strode from the gleaming tower of Croft Enterprises. It was well past midnight, and the boardroom lights finally dimmed after a marathon session dissecting quarterly projections. Numbers danced in his mind, profit margins up 12%, market share clawed from competitors, but they offered no warmth against the biting cold. He had built this empire from nothing, a scrappy kid from the Bronx who turned code into cash, bootstrapping his way to billionaire status by 30. Efficiency was his creed, weakness, a liability to be excised. The homeless figures huddled in doorways barely registered anymore, a blur of tattered coats and cardboard pleas, as inevitable as the city's gridlock. He quickened his pace toward the waiting black SUV, his breath fogging the air in sharp bursts. Central Park's southern edge loomed ahead, its wrought iron gates casting long shadows under the sodium lamps. Julian cut through a lesser path, the crunch of frost-kissed gravel under his loafers, the only sound breaking the night's hush. He nearly missed the shape on the bench, a bundle of darkness curled against the armrest, indistinguishable from the park's debris. But something smaller stirred beside it, a faint rustle like a sigh in the wind. He paused, irritation flickering. A child? The thought intruded unbidden, pulling him closer despite the internal scoff. Under the lamp's pallid glow, the figures resolved. A woman, her face half buried in a threadbare scarf, arms wrapped protectively around a small girl. The child's cheeks were flushed crimson from the chill, her lashes dusted with frost. Julian's jaw tightened. Not his problem. Turn away, keep walking. The mantra that had propelled him through boardroom battles and hostile takeovers. But as he shifted to leave, the girl's eyes fluttered open. Wide, unblinking pools of innocence met his gaze, reflecting the lamplight like shattered stars. No fear, no accusation, just a quiet curiosity that pierced straight through the armor he'd forged over the years. Julian froze, his pulse thudding in his ears. Who was she? And the woman? Recognition hit like a gut punch. Elena Petrova. The name surfaced from the recesses of his memory, sharp and unwelcome. Former head of marketing axed a month ago for a minor glitch in a quarterly report, a footnote error that delayed a presentation by mere minutes. He'd been in a foul mood that day, a deal with Asian investors teetering on collapse. Incompetence has no place here, he'd barked in the conference room, watching her gather her things with that infuriating poise. No tears, no pleas, just a nod and a quiet exit. Now here she was, reduced to this. A crumpled eviction notice peeked from her gloved hand, ink smeared by dampness. The address blurred but unmistakable, a modest walk-up in Queens, the kind of place where single mothers scrape by. Single mother. The pieces clicked, whispers in the office about her daughter, the reason she never stayed late for happy hours. Lily, wasn't it? The girl's name echoed in his mind as she nestled closer to Elena, a tiny hand clutching her mother's coat. Julian's fingers clenched at his sides, the leather of his gloves creaking. What had he done? A snap decision, meant to assert control, to weed out the weak links. But this was the fallout. Flesh and blood on a frozen bench. not just a line item on a severance form. The girl's eyes held him captive, a mirror to his own buried vulnerabilities. The boy who'd scavenged meals from dumpsters, vowing never to be that helpless again. Yet here he was, architect of someone else's despair. Elena stirred then, her eyelids lifting groggily. Panic flashed across her features as she registered the stranger looming. She pulled Lily tighter, her voice a hoarse whisper laced with defiance. "What do you want?" Julian swallowed, the words sticking like gravel in his throat. Up close, she looked gaunt, shadows hollowing her cheeks. But those sharp green eyes, intelligent, unyielding, hadn't dimmed. "Miss Petrova," he said, his tone steadier than he felt. "It's me, Julian Croft." Her breath caught, a mix of shock and wariness rippling over her face. She sat up straighter, shielding the child. "Mr. Croft, what are you doing here?" The question hung between them, absurd in the cold. He glanced at Lily, who blinked sleepily, her gaze shifting from him to her mother. I saw you. From the path." Lame, but true. He couldn't just walk away now, not with that child's eyes branding his conscience. Elena exhaled slowly, her arms trembling. Not from fear, he realized, but exhaustion. "We're fine, just resting." The lie was brittle, the eviction paper crinkling under her grip. "You're not fine," he countered, softer than intended. The wind whipped up, scattering leaves like accusations. He gestured to his SUV idling at the curb, headlights cutting through the gloom. "Come on, get in the car. It's freezing out here." She hesitated, pride warring with practicality. Lily whimpered, burrowing deeper. That sound decided it. Elena nodded curtly, gathering her few belongings. A worn backpack, the chafed blanket. Julian helped her stand, his hand brushing her elbow. She flinched but didn't pull away. As they approached the vehicle, the driver, stoic, ever discreet, opened the door without a word. Warmth enveloped them instantly, the leather seats sighing under their weight. Lily sighed too, her small body relaxing against Elena's side. Julian slid in opposite, the door sealing with a thud that echoed his racing thoughts. "Where to?" the driver asked via the intercom. Julian met Elena's guarded stare. A shelter? Too impersonal? Too fleeting? His penthouse? Absurd. No, something better. Leverage his resources. Fix this mess he'd made. "The plaza," he instructed. "Book the largest suite available, indefinitely." Elena's eyes widened. "Mr. Croft, I can't—" "You can," he interrupted, firm but not unkind. "And you will. For her." His gaze flicked to Lily, now dozing peacefully, oblivious to the storm she'd unleashed in his soul. The car glided into motion, city lights streaking past like fleeting regrets. Julian leaned back, staring out the window, but all he saw was that child's gaze. Innocent, accusing, a crack in the facade he'd thought impenetrable. What came next? He didn't know, but for the first time in years, the numbers in his head faded, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. The SUV's interior hummed with artificial warmth. The heater's soft whir, a stark counterpoint to the frost etching the windows. Elena clutched Lily closer, her daughter's small frame melting into her side as the chill ebbed from their bones. Julian sat across from them, his posture rigid, hands folded in his lap like a man bracing for impact. The city blurred past, neon signs bleeding into the night, a kaleidoscope of indifference. Elena broke the silence first, her voice low, edged with suspicion. "Why are you doing this? You fired me, remember?" Julian's throat tightened. He glanced at Lily, her eyelids drooping again, thumb inching toward her mouth in that universal childlike comfort. "I remember," he said, the words tasting like ash. "And I couldn't just leave you there." She let out a bitter huff, eyes fixed on the passing streets. "Charity from the man who put us there." How poetic. He didn't argue. What could he say? That the sight of her daughter had unraveled something deep inside him, a thread he'd long ago knotted tight. Instead, he pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "James," he spoke into the device, addressing his assistant's voicemail. "Secure a suite at the plaza. Full amenities. Food, clothing for a woman and a 6-year-old girl. Pediatric checkup on arrival. Bill it to my personal account. No questions." Elena's gaze sharpened. I don't need your pity. It's not pity, he replied, meeting her eyes. Hers were storm green, flecked with fatigue and fire. It's restitution. The word hung heavy, unspoken apologies swirling in its wake. Lily stirred, murmuring something incoherent, and Elena smoothed her hair, the gesture tender, protective. Julian watched, a pang twisting in his chest. Envy? Regret? He couldn't name it, but it gnawed. The plaza's grand facade loomed soon enough, its Beaux-Arts elegance a world away from the bench's desolation. The night concierge, unflappable in his crisp uniform, whisked them inside without a flicker of judgment. Julian lingered in the lobby, directing the staff with clipped efficiency. Warm baths drawn, a late-night meal from room service, soup, sandwiches, hot chocolate for the girl. Clothes arrived via express delivery, soft pajamas, wool sweaters, even a stuffed bear for Lily, its fur plush under the chandelier's glow. Elena hesitated at the suite's threshold, the opulent space unfolding like a dream. King-size bed draped in Egyptian cotton, a sitting area with views of the park's skeletal trees. This is too much, she whispered, but Lily's eyes lit up at the bear, tiny hands reaching out. For tonight at least, Julian said. Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning. She nodded, exhaustion winning over wariness, and closed the door softly. Julian stood there a moment longer, the click echoing in the empty hall. Then he turned, the SUV waiting to ferry him uptown to his penthouse on Billionaire's Row. The elevator ride felt interminable, the mirrored walls reflecting a man he barely recognized. Tie askew, shadows under his eyes. His home greeted him with sterile silence, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the glittering skyline, minimalist furniture in shades of gray and chrome. No photos, no mementos, just the hum of the climate control and the faint scent of his housekeeper's lemon polish. He poured a scotch, the amber liquid sloshing against crystal, but set it down untouched. Sleep? Impossible. He paced to the window, forehead pressing against the cool glass. Below, the city pulsed, indifferent to one man's unraveling. Memories flooded in, unbidden. That day in the office, a sleek conference room overlooking Hudson Yards, the air thick with tension. The Asian deal had cratered overnight, emails pinging like shrapnel. Elena's report landed on his desk, the glitch glaring, a transposed figure in the appendix, harmless but sloppy. This is unacceptable, he thundered, slamming the folder. Heads turned, the room freezing. She stood there, composed, her presentation mid-slide. Sir, it's a minor... Minor? He'd cut her off, voice laced with venom. In this company, minor errors cost millions. You're out. Clean your desk. She hadn't begged. No histrionics. Just a quiet gathering of files, her chin high, eyes meeting his with a flicker of disappointment that stung more than anger would have. Whispers followed her exit. Single mom, talented but overworked. He'd ignored them, burying himself in damage control, the deal salvaged by dawn. Now in the penthouse's void, that scene replayed on loop, his fists clenched at his sides, nails digging into palms. What had it achieved? A show of power, a vent for his frustration. And the cost? A woman and child on the streets, their lives upended by his whim. Julian sank into the leather armchair, head in hands. The scotch mocked him from the table, but he pushed it away. For years, he'd prided himself on detachment. Emotions were inefficiencies, distractions from the climb. But tonight, that child's gaze had breached the walls, stirring echoes of his own past. Nights in a cramped apartment, his mother's weary eyes after double shifts, the gnawing hunger that fueled his ambition. Guilt coiled in his gut, hot and unrelenting. He'd built Croft Enterprises from code scribbled in a public library, turning it into a tech behemoth. But at what price? Faceless employees churned through like cogs, their stories irrelevant until now. Elena's poise and defeat, her quiet dignity, it haunted him. And Lily, that innocent stare, untouched by the world's cruelties, he'd mastered. He glanced at the clock. 3 a.m. Dawn would come soon, merciless. Tomorrow he'd face her. Apologize? The word felt foreign, inadequate, but he had to try. For the first time, the empire felt hollow, its towers built on sand. As the city lights blurred through unshed tears, Julian wondered if redemption was even possible, or if he'd already lost too much to the cold calculus of success. Sunlight filtered through the plaza's heavy drapes, casting golden slants across the suite's Persian rug. Elena stood by the window, cradling a mug of coffee that had gone cold in her hands. Lily perched on the edge of the king bed, legs swinging, her new pajamas rumpled from a night of uninterrupted sleep, the first in weeks. The girl hummed softly, coloring a hotel notepad with crayons that had materialized alongside breakfast. Fresh fruit, pancakes, and a carafe of juice. Elena watched her daughter, a fragile peace settling over the chaos of the past month. But beneath it lurked the questions. How long could this last? What strings came attached? A knock echoed, sharp and insistent. Elena's grip tightened on the mug. She set it down, smoothing her borrowed robe, and crossed to the door. Peering through the peephole, she saw Julian Croft, impeccable in a fresh suit, but with shadows under his eyes that mirrored her own. She opened the door a crack. "Mr. Croft, may I come in?" His voice was even, but his posture betrayed a subtle tension, shoulders squared, as if bracing for rejection. Elena stepped aside, gesturing him in. Lily looked up, her face brightening with childlike curiosity. "Hi, mister. You brought the bear." Julian's lips twitched into a rare, awkward smile. He nodded, hovering near the sitting area. "I did. Glad you like it." Lily beamed, holding up her drawing, a scribbled family of stick figures under a sunny sky. "This is Mommy and me. And now the bear." Elena's heart squeezed. She motioned for Julian to sit on the velvet armchair, perched opposite on the sofa. The air hummed with unspoken words. The opulence of the room a glaring contrast to their shared history. He cleared his throat, leaning forward, elbows on knees. "How did you sleep?" "Better than on a bench," she replied, her tone dry but not hostile. Lily glanced between them, sensing the undercurrent, and returned to her coloring. Julian's gaze dropped to his hands, fingers interlacing. He drew a breath, the words forming slowly, deliberately. "Elena, Miss Petrova, I owe you an apology. What I did, firing you like that, it was inexcusable. The report error was trivial. I was under pressure from a deal gone south, and I took it out on you. To make an example, it was petty and wrong." The confession hung there, raw in the morning light. Elena studied him, searching for artifice. His eyes met hers, steel blue, usually so commanding, now shadowed with genuine remorse. No excuses, no deflection, just accountability, stripped bare. She exhaled, the knot in her chest loosening fractionally. It wasn't just the job, it was the timing. Rent due, Lily's school fees. You didn't know, but that's the point. You didn't care to. He winced, the barb landing true. "You're right, I didn't. But seeing you last night, and her," he nodded toward Lily, who was now adding polka dots to her drawing with fierce concentration. "It forced me to confront what my decisions really cost. People aren't just metrics on a spreadsheet." Elena crossed her arms, protective instincts flaring. "So what now? You swoop in, play the hero, and we're square?" "No." Julian shook his head, his voice gaining firmness. "That's not enough. I want to make this right. Properly." He reached into his jacket, pulling out a slim folder, and slid it across the coffee table. "I'm offering you a new role at Croft Enterprises. Not your old one. Something better suited to what you've endured." She eyed the folder warily, flipping it open. The title leaped out: Director of Community Initiatives and Employee Welfare. Job description followed, overseeing programs for work-life balance, emergency support funds, and diversity training. Real authority, budget control, direct reports, access to the C-suite. Elena looked up, skepticism etching her features. "Why this? Why me?" "Because you see the human side," he said, leaning in. "I've built this company on efficiency, but it's hollow without empathy. You've lived the fallout of that system, the overwork, the lack of safety nets. You know marketing, but more than that, you know people. I need someone who won't just crunch numbers, but challenge the status quo. For the employees, for families like yours. The words resonated, stirring a flicker of intrigue. Elena glanced at Lily, who was now humming a tune from a cartoon, oblivious to the stakes. This could mean stability, health insurance, a salary that covered more than survival. But trust? That was harder won. It sounds noble, she said, closing the folder. But is it real? Or just guilt money to ease your conscience? Julian's jaw tightened, but he didn't bristle. It's real. You'll report directly to me. Full autonomy to propose changes. If it's a figurehead role you're worried about, it won't be. I give you my word. Your word, she echoed it, tasting the irony. Yet something in his demeanor, the way his hands stayed open, palms up, chipped at her defenses. Lily piped up then, sliding off the bed and toddling over with her drawing. For you, mister. She thrust it at Julian, who took it carefully as if handling fragile glass. Thank you, he murmured, studying the colorful chaos. A stick-figure man stood beside the mother and child, holding what might be a bear. His throat bobbed. Elena watched the exchange, a softness creeping in despite herself. I'd need guarantees, she said finally. A contract with veto power on welfare programs, childcare support on site, and no micromanaging. Done, Julian agreed without hesitation. HR can draft it today. Start whenever you're ready, even next week. She nodded slowly, the decision crystallizing. For Lily's sake, she'd take the leap. But as she shook his extended hand, his grip firm, warm, they both knew this was no clean slate. It was a bridge, tenuous and untested. Julian rose, folding the drawing into his pocket. I'll have the contract sent over by noon. As the door clicked shut behind him, Elena sank back, exhaling. Lily climbed into her lap, snuggling close. Opportunity knocked, but at what hidden cost? The suite felt smaller now, the city outside a labyrinth of unknowns. The glass atrium of Croft Enterprises buzzed with the Monday morning rush, sunlight fracturing through the towering panes onto marble floors, polished to a mirror sheen. Elena stepped off the elevator a week later, her heels clicking with purpose, a sleek briefcase in hand. The air carried the familiar scent of fresh coffee and printer ink, but now it felt charged, whispers trailing her like shadows as heads turned. That's her, someone murmured from a cubicle cluster. The one who got fired and came back higher up. A few nods of congratulations from junior staff, tentative smiles. Mid-level managers averted their eyes, shuffling papers with forced nonchalance. Her new office awaited on the executive floor, minimalist, with a panoramic view of the Hudson. But Elena bypassed it, opting for a communal workspace in the heart of operations. Open-plan desks hummed with activity, coders typing furiously, designers huddled over screens. She set up her laptop there, amid the chatter, signaling accessibility. No ivory tower for her. She learned the hard way that change started from the ground up. Julian appeared shortly after, his presence commanding the room without a word. He called an impromptu, all-hands huddle in the atrium, his voice projecting over the PA. Team, a quick announcement. Elena Petrova is back with us as Director of Community Initiatives and Employee Welfare. Her role is pivotal, to ensure we're not just profitable, but supportive. She's got my full backing. Questions? Direct them to her. The applause was polite, scattered, but Elena caught the undercurrents. Curiosity from the ranks, wariness from the suits. Julian caught her eye as the crowd dispersed, a subtle nod of encouragement before vanishing into his corner office. She exhaled, rolling up her sleeves. Time to dig in. She didn't waste the day behind a desk. By noon, Elena wandered to the cafeteria, tray in hand, joining a table of custodial staff on their break. Maria, a middle-aged woman with calloused hands and a weary smile, glanced up from her sandwich. You're the new director. Fancy title. Elena smiled warmly, her marketing instincts kicking in. Listen first, sell later. Fancy, maybe, but I'm here to hear what's not working. Like, how's the shift schedule treating you? Maria hesitated, then opened up. Overtime without pay, flexible hours that meant midnight cleanings with no notice. Others chimed in. A young father juggling childcare, his voice cracking as he described missing his son's school plays for mandatory weekends. Elena jotted notes on her tablet, her expression neutral but her mind racing. These weren't anomalies, they were systemic rot, disguised as corporate agility. The afternoon brought more revelations. In the admin lounge, she sat with Sarah, a single mom like herself, who confessed over vending machine coffee. The health plan covers basics, but therapy for burnout? Forget it. And if you're late because the subway floods, bam, written up. Sarah's eyes darted, fearing reprisal, but Elena's quiet empathy coaxed out the truth. Mid-managers like section leads fostered a culture of intimidation, dangling promotions while piling on uncompensated work. Back at her makeshift desk, Elena compiled the raw data. An internal survey she'd launched that morning, anonymous via a quick app, flooded her inbox with responses. Turnover rates spiked among entry-level and support staff, 40% in the last year, driven by exhaustion and lack of support. Flexible policies translated to endless emails after hours, no boundaries. And the welfare gaps, minimal parental leave, no emergency housing aid, hit hardest for those scraping by. Her fingers paused over the keyboard, a surge of responsibility weighing heavy. For Lily's sake, she'd fought her way back. Now for these voices, she'd push further. The system she'd once navigated blindly now revealed its fractures, sharp and unforgiving. As the day waned, a soft ping interrupted her thoughts. An email from an old colleague, Tim from marketing, suggesting a discreet coffee offsite. They met at a corner diner, away from prying eyes. Tim, fidgety with his latte, leaned in. "Glad you're back, Elena, but watch your step. That report glitch? It wasn't just you. Marcus Thorne, VP of Ops, he amplified it, fed Julian doctored notes to make it look catastrophic. Wanted your Asia campaign for himself. He's got allies upstairs bearing complaints to keep his fiefdom intact." Elena's pulse quickened, anger simmering beneath her calm facade. Thorne, slick, ambitious, with a smile that never reached his eyes. She'd sensed his sabotage but lacked proof. Now it crystallized. Her firing wasn't random cruelty, it was calculated elimination. "Why tell me now?" she asked, voice steady. Tim shrugged. "You deserve better. And with your new role, maybe you can shake things up." She thanked him, mind whirling as she returned to the office. Dusk painted the skyline in bruised purples, the building emptying. Elena slipped into Julian's office unannounced, the door ajar. He looked up from his monitors, surprise flickering before settling into attentiveness. "Productive first day?" "Eye-opening," she said, closing the door. She laid out Tim's revelation succinctly. No histrionics, just facts. Julian's face hardened, knuckles whitening on his desk. "Thorne, I should have seen it. We'll handle this quietly. Gather more intel before confronting." Elena nodded, the alliance solidifying. But as she left, the report draft glowing on her screen back at her desk, a chill lingered. How deep did the cracks run? And who else might fall through before she sealed them? The conference room on the 40th floor hummed with the low drone of the projector, casting blue light across polished mahogany. Elena stood at the head of the table, her presentation remote, clicking through slides with practiced ease. 2 weeks into her role, and the data she'd gathered burned like fuel. Graphs spiking with burnout rates, testimonials anonymized but raw. Julian sat at the far end, his expression inscrutable, flanked by department heads, finance stoic, ops fidgety. Marcus Thorne lounged midway, his smile a veneer over sharp eyes, fingers drumming idly on his tablet. "I've seen the cracks," Elena began, her voice steady, laced with the authority of lived experience. "Our flexible policies are code for exploitation. Parents skipping meals to cover daycare, staff ghosting shifts because mental health support is a joke. We can fix this and profit from it. Happy employees mean lower turnover, higher output." She advanced to the core slide. Project Lily, named for her daughter, though she kept that personal. A fund for emergency housing grants, subsidized childcare, educational stipends for employees' kids. Budget breakdown followed. Modest seed from reserves, scalable with ROI projections tied to retention metrics. "This isn't charity," she emphasized, locking eyes around the room. "It's an investment. Companies like Google thrive on it. Why not us? Murmurs rippled. A junior VP nodded subtly. Finance crunched numbers on her phone. But Marcus leaned forward, his tone smooth as oil. Intriguing, Elena. Truly. But let's talk realities. He gestured at the budget slide. 2 million up front? That's not modest. That's a dent in Q4 profits. Shareholders won't cheer for feel-good fluff when margins tighten. Elena met his gaze unflinching. Fluff? Tell that to the single dad in logistics who quit last month because his kid's asthma treatments bankrupted him. Retention saves us recruitment costs. 50 grand per head, easy. He chuckled, patronizing. Personal anecdotes aside, this reeks of overreach. You're new here, again. Focus on welfare basics, not reinventing the wheel. The barb landed, whispers stirring. Elena's cheeks warmed, but she pivoted. Data doesn't lie, Marcus. Our exit interviews scream for this. And the ROI? Conservative estimates, 15% productivity boost in year one. Julian interjected then, his voice cutting through like a blade. Enough sparring. Elena's proposal has merit. I've reviewed the prelims. It's sound. We'll pilot it with a 1 million cap, monitor quarterly. Marcus's smile faltered, eyes narrowing. With respect, Julian, the board might balk. This could set precedents, every department demanding pet projects. The board answers to results, Julian countered, leaning back. And success here is measured by stable families, not just spreadsheets. Elena leads implementation. Full cooperation is mandated. The room shifted, tension coiling tighter. Approvals nodded through gritted teeth. Marcus excused himself early, citing a call, his departure leaving a chill. As the meeting dissolved, Elena gathered her notes, pulse thrumming. Victory, but Pyrrhic, eyes on her back like daggers. Back in her office, finally claimed for its quiet, Elena sank into the chair, staring at the city sprawl. Lily's photo on her desk beamed back, crayon drawing tucked beside it. Inspiration struck from necessity. Her own eviction nightmare, now a blueprint for prevention. But Marcus's resistance gnawed. Was it just fiscal conservatism or something deeper? Tim's warning echoed. Thorne's sabotage of her old project. His web of influence. A ping from her inbox. Initial applications for the pilot fund. Anonymous submissions poured in. A warehouse worker facing foreclosure. A coder with mounting student loans for her siblings. Elena prioritized, allocating test grants, coordinating with HR for discrete rollouts. By evening, the first approvals went out. A sigh of relief she could almost hear through the ether. Julian stopped by as the lights dimmed across the floor. Solid pitch today. Thorne's pushback. Expected? She nodded, rubbing her temples. He's protecting turf. But if this works... It will, he said, perched on the desk's edge. Up close, his cologne mingled with the room's sterile air. Sandalwood, subtle power. You've got the reins, use them. Their eyes met, a shared resolve bridging the gap. He lingered a moment, as if weighing more words, then straightened. Get home to Lily. We'll need you sharp. Elena watched him go, the door clicking shut. Home, the modest apartment she'd reclaimed with her signing bonus. Lily's laughter echoing off fresh-painted walls. But as she packed up, doubt crept in. The board meeting loomed next week. Full ratification or burial? Marcus's allies whispered in corners. She'd overheard snippets in the elevator, veiled doubts about her agenda. Driving through twilight traffic, Elena's mind raced. Project Lily wasn't just policy. It was redemption. For her, for the system that had chewed her up. But walls of silence loomed, built from entrenched interests. How many more cracks before the structure crumbled? At home, Lily bounded into her arms, chattering about school art. Mommy, I drew a flower. Like your project? Elena hugged her tight, the innocence a balm. Exactly like that, sweetie. But as she tucked Lily in later, reading a bedtime story under the lamp's glow, unease lingered. The fight was on, silent but simmering. What shadows hid behind Marcus's facade? Elena's inbox chimed softly amid the late afternoon hush of her office, the sound slicing through her concentration like a whisper in a confessional. She glanced at the sender. Anonymous, no subject line. Her cursor hovered, instincts prickling. Spam or something more insidious? The message was terse. Check the basement archives. Box 47, Shelf G. What you seek is there. Burn after reading. No signature, just a cryptic attachment. A faded floor plan of Croft Enterprises sublevels. Red X marking the spot. She leaned back, fingers tapping the desk. Project Lily had launched its pilot 2 days ago. Grants dispersed, grateful emails trickling in. But the board's lukewarm ratification still echoed in her mind. Marcus's veiled barbs during the vote, his allies nodding in sync. This email, a trap or a lifeline? She forwarded it to Julian with a single line. We need to talk. Now. He arrived minutes later, closing the door with a soft click. His tie was loosened, sleeves rolled up, marks of a day buried in acquisitions. What's this? He asked, scanning her screen. Anonymous tip, she said, voice low. Could be nothing or everything. Julian's eyes narrowed, weighing risks. Basements restricted, old records from the merger days. I'll clear access. He paused, searching her face. We go together. Tonight, after hours. The building emptied by 8, fluorescent lights flickering off in waves. Elena met Julian in the lobby, both in casual attire, jeans, hoodies to blend with any lingering security. The elevator plunged downward, air growing cooler, mustier. Basement level 3. Dim corridors lined with metal shelves, dust motes dancing in their flashlight beams. Shelf G loomed at the end, box 47 wedged high, its lid sealed with yellowed tape. Julian hoisted it down, the thud echoing. They pried it open on a nearby workbench, gloves on to preserve whatever lay inside. Files spilled out, yellowed memos, spreadsheets dense with figures, email printouts stamped confidential. Elena's breath caught as she sifted through. Look at this. A ledger from 3 years back. Offshore accounts funneled through shell companies labeled innocuously as consulting fees. But cross-referenced emails revealed the truth. Marcus Thorne's signature on transfers, siphoning R&D funds into personal ventures. He's been embezzling, Julian muttered, his face paling under the harsh light. Millions, hidden in plain sight. Deeper in, HR complaints buried, harassment claims against mid-managers, dismissed as unsubstantiated. One folder detailed a whistleblower payout, silenced with NDAs, and then her own file. The report glitch amplified in memos from Marcus to Julian, fabricated addenda claiming she doctored data to cover budget overruns. He set me up, Elena whispered, fingers tracing the forged notes, to grab my campaign and shut me up. I was close to auditing that Asia deal's expenses. Julian's fists clenched, crumpling a page. This goes higher. His cronies in ops. They're in on it. Shell firms to launder, complaints quashed to protect the network. He paced the narrow aisle, shadows stretching. We've got proof, but it's dynamite. Leak it wrong, and the company tanks, stocks plummet, lawsuits bury us. Elena's mind raced, the dank air pressing in, triumph soured by dread. Marcus's reach, board connections, legal sharks. Exposed now, and he'd spin it as sabotage, drag her name through mud again. Wait too long, and evidence vanishes. We can't go public yet, she said, echoing his thoughts. Need more. Digital trails, witnesses, that anonymous sender, ally or bait? Julian nodded, snapping photos with his phone, the flash stark against the gloom. We'll copy everything, secure server, encrypted, then build the case. Hire a forensic accountant quietly and watch our backs. If he suspects, the implication hung, unspoken. They worked in silence, scanning documents into a portable drive, the hum of the device a tense underscore. Elena's thoughts drifted to Lily, safe with a sitter, her innocent world untouched by this rot. What if it spilled over? A mother's fear, sharp as the file's edges. Box resealed, they ascended, the elevator's ascent mirroring their resolve. In Julian's office, blinds drawn, lights low, they poured over the digital hall. First step, trace the sender's IP, he said, typing commands. Discreetly. Elena leaned against the window, city lights a distant blur. This isn't just about me anymore. It's the whole system. People like Maria, Sarah, crushed under it. Julian looked up, his expression softening. That's why you're here. We fix it together. A beat of shared vulnerability, his hand brushing hers as he passed the drive. No spark, just solidarity, forged in shadows. They parted ways, Elena slipping into the night with the drive tucked in her bag. Home beckoned, Lily's bedtime story waiting. But as she drove, rear-view mirror clear, yet paranoia tinged, questions festered. Who else knew? And how far would Marcus go to protect his empire within an empire? The storm broke at dawn, not with thunder, but with a barrage of notifications lighting up Elena's phone. She stirred in bed, Lily's soft breathing beside her a fragile anchor. Bleary-eyed, she scrolled, headlines screaming from business feeds. Croft exec in bed with CEO? Welfare queen or gold digger? Grainy photos, her and Julian exiting the office late, innocuous but twisted by captions implying trysts. Anonymous sources quoted, Petrova's fast rise, more than merit. Social media amplified it, hashtags like Cocker Croft scandal trending, memes mocking her as the bench-to-boardroom babe. Elena's stomach churned, bile rising. Not just her name dragged, Lily's school might hear, playground whispers turning cruel. She dressed hurriedly, dropping Lily at daycare with a forced smile, then raced to the office. The lobby buzzed, stares lingering longer than usual. Whispers snaked through. Saw the articles? Thorne's fingerprints all over it. Julian's office was a war room by 9. Blinds half drawn, his desk cluttered with printouts. He looked up as she entered, face etched with fury, tie askew. This is retaliation. Marcus is preempting us. She slammed the door, pacing. He's turning my story against me, making it sordid. If this sticks, Project Lily dies. I'm discredited. Julian nodded, fingers steepled. He's banking on scandal to bury the evidence. But we don't hide. He pulled up a draft press release on his screen. We counter. Hard. Call a conference today. Expose the embezzlement, the cover-ups. Let the chips fall. Elena's breath caught. Risky. FBI might not move fast enough. Lawsuits could swarm. But retreating? That was surrender. Agreed, but we need backup. Witnesses. They mobilized. Elena reached out to the anonymous sender via a burner email. Response swift. Identity revealed as a former ops analyst, ousted for questioning budgets. I'll testify, the message read. Julian looped in their forensic accountant, data packets ready for handover. By noon, the press room at Croft hummed with reporters, cameras flashing like lightning. Elena stood beside Julian at the podium, her suit armor against the glare. He spoke first, voice resonant. Recent rumors are baseless smears. Ms. Petrova's role is earned through expertise and vision, but this distraction masked deeper rot. He nodded to her. Elena stepped forward, heart pounding but resolve steel. I've uncovered systemic corruption, embezzlement via shells, silenced harassment claims. Evidence here. She held up a redacted folder, slides projecting redacted ledgers. VP Marcus Thorne orchestrated it, including framing my dismissal to silence audits. Gasps rippled. Questions erupted. Proof? Motive? Julian fielded them, calm amid chaos. Authorities have been notified. FBI is reviewing. The dominoes tumbled fast. Post-conference emails flooded Elena's inbox, staff stepping forward. A harassed intern with saved voicemails, a finance clerk with altered spreadsheets. The anonymous analyst went public in a follow-up interview, naming names. Social media shifted. Yshaktra's Croft cleanup trending. Former employees sharing stories of bullying. Buried complaints. Marcus's response? A frantic denial via his lawyer, but cracks showed. His office emptied by afternoon. Security escorting him out amid whispers of suspension. FBI agents arrived discreetly, badges flashing, carting boxes from ops. The board convened an emergency, Julian steering the narrative. Transparency now, or we crumble. Evening brought exhaustion, Elena collapsing in her office chair as the city lights ignited. Julian entered, 2 coffees in hand. It's cascading. Stocks dipped 5%, but analysts praise the purge. Thorne's allies are flipping. Deals for testimony. She accepted the cup, warmth seeping through. And the rumors? About us? Dying embers, he said, sitting across. We addressed it head on. No fuel left. His gaze held hers, a flicker of something deeper. Admiration, perhaps relief. You were brilliant up there. Unshakable. Elena managed a wry smile. For Lily, she asked why Mommy was on TV. The weight pressed, protecting her daughter from the fallout, the stares at school. Julian leaned in. We'll shield her. And you. This ends with justice. As agents wrapped downstairs, the building's hum softened to a vigil. Elena glanced at her phone. A text from the daycare. Lily's fine, drawing you as a superhero. Tears pricked, unbidden. The storm raged on, but they'd weathered the eye. Yet in the quiet, a question loomed. When the debris cleared, what empire would remain? A year had etched its marks on Croft Enterprises, the once sterile tower now humming with a vitality born from upheaval. Sunlight streamed through the atrium's glass dome, illuminating banners for the annual company picnic, families milling about, laughter echoing off the marble. Elena stood at the edge of the park adjacent to the building, a vast green expanse rented for the day. She watched as employees clustered around picnic tables, laden with grilled fare and fresh salads, children darting between games of tag and face-painting stations. Project Lily had blossomed, scholarships awarded, emergency funds saving homes, and on-site daycare a bustling hub. The board, purged of Thorne's remnants, had embraced it as a model, profits steady despite or because of the transparency overhaul. Marcus Thorne's trial had wrapped months ago, headlines fading from scandal to cautionary tale. He'd taken a plea, 5 years in federal prison, his network dismantled like a house of cards. FBI reports cited Elena's evidence as pivotal. Her name was cleared in the public eye. Whispers of gold digger had dissolved under the weight of facts, replaced by profiles lauding her as a corporate reformer. Yet scars lingered. Nights when doubt crept in, Lily's innocent questions about why people were mean to Mommy, twisting like knives. She smoothed her sundress, spotting Julian across the lawn. He crouched beside a group of kids, including Lily, demonstrating a frisbee toss with uncharacteristic clumsiness. His laugh carried on the breeze, genuine, unburdened. Gone was the perpetual tie. Today, khakis and a polo, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms tanned from weekend hikes he'd started taking. A bid for balance. Lily squealed as the frisbee sailed wide, chasing it with boundless energy. Catch, Mr. Julian, she called, her pigtails bouncing. He obliged, scooping her up in mock defeat, her giggles infectious. Elena approached, a soft smile playing on her lips. You're a natural, she teased, handing him a lemonade. He set Lily down, watching her scamper off to join a sack race. Practice makes something. His eyes met hers, warmth flickering. As COO now, she'd become his right hand, strategy sessions blending seamlessly into shared visions, their partnership a bedrock. No grand romance, but a quiet depth. Late-night texts about ideas, mutual respect forging something enduring. Hard to believe it's been a year, he said, gesturing to the crowd. A former custodian, now promoted to supervisor, waved from afar, her family thriving thanks to a Lilly grant. We almost lost this. Elena nodded, the memory of that frozen bench a distant ache. We rebuilt better. Turnovers down 30%, engagement surveys off the charts. But her voice softened. It's the stories that matter. Like Sarah's, her kids in college now. No debt looming. Julian's gaze drifted to the horizon, Manhattan's skyline a testament to his empire. Yet his hands, once clenched in boardroom battles, now relaxed at his sides. I thought success was the climb. Numbers are stacking higher. He turned to her, vulnerability etching his features. But seeing her, he nodded at Lily, now burying Julian in a pile of leaves with other kids. It reframed everything. You didn't just save the company. You saved me from becoming obsolete. She touched his arm lightly, the contact brief but electric. We saved each other, and them. A cheer erupted from the sack race. Employees crossing the finish line, families applauding. No hierarchies today, just community. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden hues, Julian joined Lily on the grass. He sat cross-legged, letting her climb onto his shoulders for a better view of the tug-of-war. Elena watched from a blanket, chatting with a cluster of staff, Maria sharing recipes, Tim recounting his promotion. Pride swelled in her chest. The woman who'd huddled in the cold was now architect of warmth. Dusk approached, fireflies winking to life. Julian extricated himself from the games, Lily's hand in his as they wandered back. "Mommy, Julian says we can have ice cream," the girl announced, eyes sparkling. Elena laughed, ruffling her hair. "Only if you share." They sat together, the three of them, cones dripping in the fading light. Julian licked vanilla from his fingers, gaze thoughtful. It's the real metric, not the billions." Elena leaned back on her elbows, the grass cool beneath her. "We've got both now. Balance." As stars pricked the sky, families packed up, hugs exchanged. Julian walked them to Elena's car, Lily yawning in her arms. "See you Monday?" he asked, a question laced with more. "Bright and early," she replied, their eyes holding a promise unspoken. Driving home, Lily asleep in the back, Elena glanced in the rear view. The park receded, but the dawn it represented lingered. A new foundation, solid against storms past. Redemption wasn't an endpoint. It was this. Lives intertwined, futures brighter. And in the quiet night, hope bloomed eternal. Thank you so much for listening to this story of second chances, courage, and transformation. If Elena and Julian's journey moved you, or if Lily reminded you of the power of hope, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs a little light today. And remember, every small action can lead to something extraordinary. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next chapter. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and keep believing in new beginnings.